Hey, I'm Nicole Wrights here, and I am here with my brother,
Josh.
and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Vampire Chronicles. Specifically, the fact that I don't know anything about them other than what Josh tells me, because Josh loves them.
And what she remembers in her mind.
Oh yeah, and I've seen the movie The Interview with the Vampire. I've seen that. And I've read one passage where Lestat as a human is killing wolves. Because I was working on a wolf story, and Josh was like, hit this up. So I did. So that's all my knowledge of this, and I thought it would be kind of funny because these videos usually turn out rather hilarious. Especially if you read the content and then you're watching this. So let's get started. Because we're vampires.
This intro is 47 seconds.
We're going to cut it.
if you watch this and if you haven't read it, you're going to be like, what the fuck is going on?
So I'm going to start from the beginning as I know it. Once upon a time, there was this vampire, and he was really rich and really old, and he had a really creepy thing for, like, blonde guys with blue eyes. Like, he was a freak, killing them all over the place, grabbing them, probably, having some funky times with them. All kinds of nonsense like that. But he had this giant-ass cave, and in this cave, he had just piles of money. He was like a dragon. You know how dragons just get all of the money and they steal jewelry and stuff? That was his life, and he just put all of his life savings in a cave. He didn't bury it. He didn't put it in a bank, because I don't think there were banks then. He just put it in this cave, and nobody went to this cave because everybody knew that he was insane, and they didn't want to get murdered straight up like he would murder them. So anyway, this guy, he's probably very artsy. I think, yeah, he definitely was, because he went to plays, and he was in Paris watching a play, and then all of a sudden this little blonde dandy pops out, and he's just like, oh, tragedy, I am an actor. And he was like, that blonde bombshell needs to be immortal. So he did what, people do, and he, took him aside and was like, I want an autograph, knocked him unconscious, dragged him to his cave, and then was like, listen, I'm a vampire, you're a human, I'm gonna bite the ever-living daylights out of you and, suck your blood, and then you're gonna die. But here's the kicker, I'm gonna give you some of my blood. So he, did one of those wrist slit things, all sexy, was feeding the guy his blood, stripping into his mouth. It was probably a very heated scene, very charged emotionally. And then this guy becomes a vampire, and he dies, becomes a vampire, and then the other guy is like, now that you know everything you need to know, so he walks out into the sunlight and just explodes, and he's dead. And now Lestat has this fortune that this guy left for him, because apparently that was his game plan all along. Really terrible game plan, because you want to kind of live at the end of your game plan. But this guy was he was done with life because he killed so many blonde kids, and it just really got to him, I think. Really emotionally, he was starting to regret it, but he wanted an heir, and he couldn't have children because he's a vampire, so this is what happened. Do you agree with this so far?
It wasn't a cave. I pictured a cave this whole time. What was it? I said the lair. A lair? So you picture a cave, right? Keep going.
Okay, so anyway. So, after that, Lestat was like, wow, what am I supposed to do? And he met this dick. His name is Marius. Nobody likes him, except for himself. And, Akasha, I think she might like him. I think they might be friends. So, Akasha and him are friends. And he meets Marius, and Lestat instantly is like, I don't have time for you, get out. And then Lestat's like, what am I supposed to do? He's this big, bad vampire, but he's still very new, and he's just trying to figure things out. Then he meets this little boy, Armand, and Armand's like, I'm a teenager, also, I want things my way. And Lestat was like, I don't have time for you, and I'm pretty sure he did something terrible to him. Oh man, I forgot to talk about Nicholas. He was way in the beginning. They cut off his hands. Based off of Tumblr, but I'm not exactly sure. I think he did something bad, and then Ramon was like, just get out of Paris and get out of my face. So Lestat's like, whatever. So he crosses the sea to America, and he goes to Louisiana, because that's where all vampires end up, as we know. I mean, the originals, him, probably some other vampires along the line. So they go to Louisiana, or he goes by himself, and then he meets this really sad guy, super depressing, Louis. But also super hot. Everybody loves him. Everybody wants to be him. Everybody wants to be with him. Everybody wants to touch him. He is the guy everybody wants, right? I got this. I know. So, he meets Louis, and then, this guy's perfect. So he bites him up. They're flying in the air. He drops him into the Mississippi, and then, they start living their life together, but Louis is having a really hard time transitioning. Because he doesn't like killing people, and he's really sad, and then all of a sudden this hot blonde guy just comes out of nowhere and is trying to romance him, and it's a little bit unsettling, but they definitely do it multiple times. I'm sure, based off of what I've been seeing. Yeah, so then they get together, but then Louis, of course, he's like, I can't do this. It's tragic. I just want to be mortal. Where are all the sunrises? He can't see them because he'd burn up. So then they adopt a child, and by adopt, I mean they turn this bitch into a vampire. And then everything seems fine. Like, a bunch of years pass, and suddenly they're Americans. Americans, USA. And, killing families, you know. Lestat teaches this little girl all this stuff. And then some tragedy strikes, and she's killed, and Lestat, they think is killed, and they throw him in a swamp with alligators, but he comes back, and then, you know, anyway, this girl dies, and Louis is, like, in despair, and the whole trio is split up because of death, and, a lot of betrayal, and a lot of mistrust, like, stabbed through the heart multiple times, like, it's just crazy.
So what happens next?
What happens next? Okay, now this is where it gets a little fuzzy, because, you know, that's the end of Interview with the Vampire, and that's what I watched, so I'm just going based off of what you've told me.
And, like, what you remember of what you told me, which could be a bit now.
It's definitely 100% true. So after this whole thing that happens, Louis, he goes off, and he just is like, I don't need you, Lestat. So he travels, because he's like, you know what? I hate you. Go die. But then Lestat's like, I'm back, bitches! And he, like, bites the guy that they did the interview with, and he gets all crazy, and he steals his car. That's just when things go downhill. But then this guy, he doesn't kill the guy, and the guy becomes obsessed with vampires. And he is wandering around, like, looking for vampires, looking for clues, like, with his little magnifying glass. He's looking for the clues. He becomes a vampire detective, definitely. And he finds a vampire, or rather, a vampire finds him, because you don't find them, they find you. And, of course, this vampire is a little 15, 16-year-old little strapping boy Armand. And Armand is immediately like, I want you in my collection. So, you know, he obviously turns him. And they have this crazy, epic romance. Then, meanwhile, with Lestat, he's doing some crazy things. And eventually, he meets this little girl, Rose. And he's like, whoa, I like you. I'm going to be your dad. But, you know, vampires can't really adopt children, so it has a lot of issues. But eventually, he gets it done because he yells, make this happen! Make it happen! Damn it! Give me the girl! And then they give her the girl. I mean, they give him the girl. And it's pretty good. And he does, you know, what responsible parents do and puts her in boarding school. And then he goes back to America. And he becomes he discovers rock. He discovers a lot of rock and roll, and he becomes like this big, iconic vampire rock and roll guy. And he's singing about vampires, and the other vampires are like, bitch, you better not be singing about us, because people are going to know about us. And he's like, calm down. Nobody suspects a thing. And, you know, so he's singing like, I'm a vampire! Vampires exist! Armand lives in Paris, and he's also a vampire! Ah! Also, I have a love affair with Louis, but he's mad at me! Oh God, why? And so he's doing this concert, and then all the vampires show up, about to straight up murder his ass. And that's when Louis that's when his mom, Gabriella, yeah, something French, she shows up. Oh, blonde too. Probably blue eyes, I'm assuming. And she's also a vampire. Oh yeah, he turned his mom. So she shows up and she's like, we gotta save my son. So she assembles the dream team, Louis and Armand, and they go and they save him. And then I believe this is when it gets crazy. This is when it gets a little bit out of hand. Because then he meets some scientists and they clone him. And he has a child named Victor. And in the timeline, and he doesn't know about Victor. They clone him, and then he leaves, and then he comes back years later, and Victor's like this grown man, and and Lestat's like 20 plus a couple thousand. So it's like this really awkward thing. He's like a couple thousand, right?
Lestat?
Yeah. He feels like a couple thousand. Wait, plus a few hundred.
He's like 256.
Well, you didn't explain that enough to me in your stories. So anyway. And then they go back to Europe, probably together, but maybe it's just Lestat. It's kind of unclear. And they find Rose again. So he goes back to America and he finds Rose, and he finds out that Rose is being abused in this boarding school. And he's not going to take that shit. He's Lestat the Lion Court. Like, that's not what he's about. So he gets his best friend forever, Louis de Pontdolac, and he's like, murder time. So they get their flamethrowers. they get Rose out of there and they burn the place to the ground with everyone inside. Like, all those teachers, probably the children, I mean, they were kind of, like, merciless in this. They were, like, purging, you know, maybe she was bullied. Like, better kill everybody just to be sure. So they burn it to the ground, and they're like, whoa, teamwork, high-five me, you're gonna be Louis in this situation.
Ooh, teamwork!
They're like, yeah, we got the girl. But then this is where shit really hits the fan, because she gets kidnapped, and Victor gets kidnapped, and the Queen Kashashasha, she also gets kidnapped. Or maybe it's a different person. No, actually, it's this girl in a cave who's been in there with her sister. She gets kidnapped, and they're all kidnapped together. And Louis, they beat the shit out of Louis when they took the children. So he's really pissed, because his Louis is just feeling really emotional right now. And then they're at this dinner party, and Lestat's just, you know, being himself. He's brooding about how he lost the children, and Lestat's like, it's cool, bro. So he's at this dinner party with the kidnappers, and they're trying to decide what to do because this queen has, like, Amal. And Amal is, like, this thing that all the vampires have, but one person has all of it, but most of it. And then if she dies, every vampire in her line dies. And they're just not about that because, you know, they're in her line probably, or most of them are, or maybe they don't know because it's just so widespread over the thousands or a few hundreds of years. So they have this huge problem. And they're trying to decide what to do. And that's when Lestat just, you know, gets up casually, walks over to where this axe is presumably being displayed on the wall because vampires are in that kind of shit. And he takes it, and he goes up to the kidnapper, and he just cuts off his damn arm. Like
this. And then his arm's like...
And he's freaking out, and that's when Lestat makes his demands, and he's like, bitch, you were gonna give me back Rose, you were gonna give me back Victor, you were gonna apologize for beating the shit out of Louis, and you're gonna give me back the queen, possibly Kashasha, or possibly Cave Girl, unless they're the same person. Nope, it's okay, Josh, save all questions and comments for last. And then, the guy's like, you know what, you are really freaking me out right now, I just want to go be with my undead lover. And I just don't want to deal with this. He's like, he's really scared. He's like about to throw up and like piss himself. Like, that's how scared he is. Like, he's really scared. Lestat holds the queen cave girl in his arms. And, my dear, I'm going to Lestat. I'm gonna pull a Lestat here. And I'm gonna give you a mercy kill. And he goes, and he eats her. He drinks her blood. And he takes the Amal into himself. And this makes him the brat prince Lestat, and he becomes the prince of all vampires. I don't know who exactly the king is. Maybe we'll figure that out later. But I think basically he's the king of vampires. He becomes the strongest vampire in the book series. And that's when Louis, rest his heart, he goes, and he's traveling across the lands. He's got to be with him. He maybe takes an aeroplane. And then he takes like a speedboat. And then like an escalator. And anyway, he's going to go see Lestat. And that is where the book ends. And we are just left wondering what will happen next. And a lot of people were thinking space. Yeah, they're going to go into space. But there's a lot of people are wondering things about that. Even Armand and Daniel are wondering about that. They're really... I saw this in a Tumblr thing. So
I think you're being the role-playing fanfiction.
Oh, maybe I found some of that. So anyway, that's what happens in that. And they're wondering about space. But you know what? Anne Rice does not leave us hanging. She says immediately, Lestat's going to Atlantis. Peace. I think that Louis is going to go into Atlantis with him. And it's going to be just very good. And that, if you have not been reading the series, is what you have missed. And what you can look forward to. So, you know, there's like a lot of good things to look forward to. Possibly space. Definitely Atlantis. And nobody really knows what's going to happen, except that we all think that it's going to turn out to be like, oh, the vampires, yeah, we're also like part Atlantean, and everybody is like really excited to see where that goes, and whether we have water powers that we never knew about. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste.
Sympathy for the devil.
Yeah, he's listening to that one. I don't really know it, but that song was like a throwback, like, or a future vision to his future obsession with rock. Like, they took that to be like, hey, he's gonna really enjoy this in the future. That's everything.